You make $75,000 a year. You've got a decent car, a nice apartment, maybe you even own a small house. You can afford to go out to dinner a few times a month, take a vacation once a year, and you're not living paycheck to paycheck most of the time. You think you're doing pretty well, right? You're middle class. You made it. But here's what nobody tells you. You're exactly where the system wants you to be. And if you don't change something fundamental about how you think about money in the next 5 years, you're going to stay there for the rest of your life. Look, I know that sounds harsh, but stick with me here because what I'm about to show you is going to completely change how you see your financial future. My name is Rayhan, and I spend way too much time thinking about why people who make good money still can't seem to build real wealth. If you're someone who feels like you're doing everything right, working hard, saving when you can, being responsible, but you're still not getting ahead the way you thought you would, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. So let's talk about this statistic that honestly keeps me up at night. According to the Federal Reserve's Survey of Consumer Finances, the median net worth of middle-income families, that's people making between $50,000 and $130,000 a year, is about $104,000. Now, that might sound okay, until you realize that for most of these families, the majority of that net worth is their home equity. Take away the house, and the median liquid net worth drops to around $15,000. $15,000. That's what the average middle-class family has after years, sometimes decades of working. Here's the thing, this isn't an accident. The middle class isn't stuck because people are lazy or because they're not smart enough. They're stuck because they're following a playbook that was designed to keep them exactly where they are. Now you might be thinking, okay, Rayhan, but I make decent money. I just need a raise or a promotion, and then I'll start building wealth. And this is the first trap, what I call the income illusion. Let me show you what I mean with some actual math. Let's say you're making $60,000 a year right now. You work hard, you get promoted, and boom, now you're making $80,000. That's a $20,000 raise. That's huge. You should be able to start really saving now, right? But here's what actually happens. That extra $20,000, after taxes, it's more like $14,000 in your pocket. That's about $1,167 a month. But then something interesting happens. Lifestyle creep. You finally upgrade from that beat-up Honda Civic to a nicer car. Maybe a $35,000 SUV with a $500 monthly payment. You move from your cramped apartment to a nicer place because, hey, you can afford it now. That's another $300 more per month in rent. You start going out more, ordering better food, buying nicer clothes because you need to look the part at your new position. Before you know it, that extra $1,167 is completely gone, and you're in the exact same financial position you were before, just with nicer stuff. This is where it gets really interesting. A study from the Journal of Economic Perspectives found that for every dollar increase in income, the average American increases their spending by 90 cents. 90 cents. We're only saving 10% of our raises, and that's if we're lucky. But the income illusion is just the surface level problem. The real reason people stay middle class forever has to do with something much more fundamental. It's about assets versus income. Look, the middle class focuses on income. The wealthy focus on assets. And understanding the difference between these two things is literally the difference between working until you're 70 and retiring at 50. Let me break this down with a real example. Let's say you have two people, both 30 years old. Person A makes $100,000 a year working as a software engineer. Person B makes $60,000 a year, but owns 3 rental properties that each generate $500 a month in cash flow after all expenses. That's $1,500 a month or $18,000 a year in passive income. Now, most people would say person A is doing better, right? They're making almost twice as much. But let's fast forward 20 years. Person A gets raises, works their way up, and by 50, they're making $150,000 a year. Pretty good, right? But here's the catch. If they stop working, that income goes to zero immediately. Person B, on the other hand, keeps their job but also keeps acquiring income-producing assets. By age 50, they own 8 rental properties, generating $4,000 a month in passive income. That's $48,000 a year that comes in whether they work or not. Plus, those properties have appreciated in value. If each property went from $200,000 to $350,000 over those 20 years, which is actually conservative at a 3% annual appreciation, that's $1.2 million in equity they've built. Here's what most people don't realize. Person A might have a higher salary, but Person B has financial freedom. Person A is still trading time for money. Person B owns assets that generate money. Now, let's talk about something that sounds completely crazy, but it's true. 60% of Americans earning over $100,000 per year report living paycheck to paycheck. $100,000 a year, and they can't get ahead. This is what I call the paycheck to paycheck paradox, and it reveals something crucial about why the middle class stays middle class. The problem isn't just about making more money, it's about the mental framework we have around money. Middle class people see money as something you earn and spend. Wealthy people see money as something you capture and deploy. Let me explain what I mean. When most middle class people get paid, here's what happens. Money comes in, bills go out, they spend on whatever they need or want, and if there's anything left over at the end of the month, maybe they save it. This is what I call pay yourself last mentality, even if they don't realize that's what they're doing. But here's the thing, there's never anything left over. There's always something else to buy, another expense that comes up, another thing that seems important in the moment. Wealthy people flip this entirely. When money comes in, the first thing they do is pay themselves, meaning they immediately allocate money to investments, assets, savings. The leftover is what they spend. It's the exact opposite approach. And the math on this is staggering. Let's say you make $75,000 a year. You follow the middle class model and save whatever's left over. You might end up saving $100 or $200 a month on average, let's say $1,800 a year. Over 30 years at a 7% return, that's about $170,000. But if you flip it and automatically invest 15% of your income, that's $937.50 a month or $11,250 a year. Over 30 years at that same 7% return, you end up with about $1.06 million. That's the difference between retiring middle class and retiring wealthy. And it's just a mental shift about when you pay yourself. Now you might be thinking, okay, Rehan, but didn't you say people need to invest in themselves? What about education? And this is important because here's another trap that keeps people stuck, the education trap. Look, I'm not saying education is bad, but the middle class has been sold this idea that more education automatically equals more money. And the math doesn't support it anymore. The average student loan debt for someone with a bachelor's degree is about $30,000. For a master's degree, it's closer to $70,000. And here's what tells me. Most people take on this debt thinking it's good debt because it's an investment in their future earning potential. But let's run the actual numbers. Say you go back to school for a master's degree to increase your earning potential. That degree cost you $70,000 in loans at 6% interest over 10 years. Your monthly payment is about $777. Over those 10 years, you'll pay $93,240 total. That's $23,240 in interest alone.
Now let's say that master's degree gets you a $15,000 raise. After taxes, that's about $10,500 more per year, or $875 a month. But remember, you're paying $777 of that toward your loan. So your actual increase in take-home pay is $98 a month for 10 years. Do you see the trap here? You've increased your income, but you haven't increased your wealth. In fact, for those first 10 years, you've barely increased your cash flow at all. And this is assuming you got that full $15,000 raise, which isn't guaranteed. Compare that to someone who took that same $70,000 and used it as a down payment on investment properties or started a side business. The return on investment could be 10%, 15%, even 20% annually. That's the difference between trading time for a slightly higher salary and owning assets that generate returns. Here's another uncomfortable truth. The retirement plan that the middle class is following is fundamentally broken. The average 401k balance for someone between 55 and 64 years old, people who are about to retire, is about $185,000 according to Vanguard. Now, financial advisors say you can safely withdraw about 4% per year from your retirement savings. 4% of $185,000 is $7,400 a year. That's $616 a month. Add in Social Security, the average Social Security payment is about $1,827 a month, and you're looking at about $2,443 a month to live on in retirement. That's $29,316 a year. Could you live on $29,000 a year right now? Be honest with yourself, because that's where most middle-class people are heading, and they don't even realize it. And this is after working 40 years. This is the successful middle-class retirement plan. So after all this doom and gloom, you're probably wondering, okay, Rehan, what's the answer? How do we actually break out of this? And here's where I'm going to tell you something that might sound simple, but it requires a complete mental shift. The key to breaking out of the middle class isn't about making more money first. It's about changing what you do with the money you already have. The wealthy don't become wealthy because they earn more. They become wealthy because they think about money differently. Every dollar that comes in, they ask, how can this dollar make me more dollars? Let me give you a concrete example of what this looks like in practice. Let's say you have $500 a month that you could either spend or invest. Most middle-class people would spend it. Dinners out, entertainment, nicer things. And there's nothing wrong with enjoying your life. But here's the alternative. You take that $500 a month and invest it in index funds at an average 10% annual return. After just 10 years, you have $102,000. After 20 years, you have $382,000. After 30 years, you have over $1.1 million. But here's where it gets really interesting. After that first 10 years, when you have $102,000 invested, that money is now generating about $10,200 per year in returns on its own. That's $850 a month in investment returns, more than your original $500 monthly investment. This is when you've broken out of the middle class. This is when your money starts working harder than you do. Now let's talk about how to actually do this, because I don't want this to just be theory. I want you to actually take action. Step 1. Calculate your asset acquisition rate. This is a term I just made up, but it's crucial. Every month, how much money are you putting toward things that will generate income or appreciate in value? Not your primary home, that's not an investment, that's where you live. I'm talking about actual assets. For most middle-class people, this number is 0. It needs to become at least 15% of your income, ideally 25%. Step 2. Create an asset acquisition fund. This is separate from your emergency fund. This is money specifically designated for buying income-producing assets. It could be starting a side business, buying dividend-paying stocks, investing in real estate, or even buying equipment that you can rent out. The point is, this money has one job: to buy things that make you more money. Step 3. Educate yourself on one asset class. Don't try to become an expert in everything. Pick one thing: real estate, dividend investing, small business ownership, whatever interests you, and become extremely knowledgeable about it. Spend the next 6 months learning everything you can. The middle class dabbles. The wealthy specialize. Step 4. Make your first asset purchase within the next 12 months. It doesn't have to be huge. It could be buying a few shares of a dividend-paying stock. It could be buying a used lawnmower and starting a lawn care side business. It could be partnering with someone to invest in a rental property. The amount doesn't matter as much as breaking the psychological barrier and making that first move from being purely an income earner to being an asset owner. Here's the thing that nobody talks about. Breaking out of the middle class is more psychological than it is mathematical. The math is actually pretty simple. Spend less than you earn, invest the difference in assets, repeat for decades. But the psychology, that's the hard part. The middle class has been conditioned to find their identity in their job title and their income. I'm a manager at a Fortune 500 company making $85,000 a year. That's how middle-class people introduce themselves at parties. Wealthy people think differently. They don't identify with their job because their job isn't the source of their financial security. Their assets are. They might say, I invest in real estate, or I own a portfolio of businesses, even if they also have a day job. This shift in identity is crucial because it changes how you make decisions. When your identity is tied to your income, you make decisions that protect and grow your income. When your identity is tied to your assets, you make decisions that protect and grow your assets. And long term, assets will always beat income. Look, I'm going to be straight with you. Most people watching this video won't do anything with this information. They'll watch, they'll nod along, and they'll think, yeah, that makes sense. And then they'll go right back to living the exact same way they were living before. And that's fine. That's their choice. But if you're still watching right now, I don't think you're most people. The uncomfortable truth is that staying middle class is easy. It's comfortable. You get to have a decent lifestyle, you get to feel like you're doing okay, and you never have to take any risks or make any uncomfortable changes. But breaking out of the middle class, that requires sacrifice. It requires saying no to things you want now for things you want more later. It requires being different from your peer group. It requires learning new skills and taking on new challenges. Here's what I know. 5 years from now, you're going to be somewhere. You're either going to be in the exact same financial position you're in now, maybe with a slightly higher salary but the same financial stress, or you're going to have built a foundation of assets that is starting to generate real wealth for you. The difference between those two futures is the decision you make right now about whether you're going to stay on the middle-class treadmill or whether you're going to start building something different. So here's my challenge to you. Within the next 30 days, I want you to make one decision that moves you from being purely an income earner to being an asset builder. Open a brokerage account and buy your first share of stock. Save $500 for your asset acquisition fund. Research a side business you could start. Do something, anything, that represents a shift in your financial mindset. Because here's what most people don't realize. You're not going to suddenly wake up one day wealthy. Wealth is built through thousands of small decisions made consistently over time that prioritize assets over income and long-term security over short-term comfort. 80% of people stay middle class forever because they never make that shift. But you can be in that other 20%. You just have to decide that you want it badly enough to do something different than everyone else around you. If this video changed how you think about money and your financial future, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Drop a comment below and let me know what your first step is going to be. I read every single comment, and I'd love to hear what action you're going to take. I'll see you in the next video.